This meeting is being recorded.
So, final stage of today's conference. I hope you've got a lot out of it. There's a lot of material for you to reflect back on and to revisit via the conference site right up until the end of December. So we've got a couple of things that we're going to be doing in this final half hour. In a little while, we're going to be handing over to Archdeacon Karen Lund to do some closing remarks and a closing prayer before we end today. But first of all, I'm going to hand over to Rogers Govender, the Dean of Manchester, who is going to do a closing keynote address for us, all around issues around thankfulness as it shows on the screen. Over to you, Roger.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to be with you on this call, on this conference, and thank you, Paul, for inviting me to share some words. Some of you may be wondering, Rogers is the Dean of Manchester, based at the Cathedral. What does a Cathedral Dean have to tell us about generosity and giving? Well, let me begin by saying that you may or may not be aware that I've been a parish priest for over 20 years, both in South Africa, where I was ordained and where I was born, but also here in Manchester. I used to be vicar of West Didsbury for 5 years before moving to the cathedral. And I've been in the cathedral now for almost 17 years. So I have a little bit of experience in terms of finding money to run a parish and now finding money to run a cathedral. And based on my experience, let me share some thoughts with you. Firstly, for me, and again, speaking about my own ministry and the way I've approached giving and generosity, for me, it has always begun and always begins with a sense of abundance rather than scarcity or scarcity. I'm one of those who believes that all the resources that we need for mission and ministry is found in both the congregation that we serve, as well congregations it might be, as well as the local and wider community. So you'll deduce from what I've just said that my understanding of the church, its reach and its mission is not just to its congregation, but to the wider community. And our bishops rightly remind us as clergy regularly that we are not to be chaplains to the congregation. We are priests to the community. If we are priests to the community, then everybody's involved in our mission. And in a sense, our attitude of giving, in terms of giving and generosity for me, is a very wide one. And I'll say a bit more about that in a few minutes. The other thing I would say, for me, it begins, obviously, for all of us, it should begin with God. God, as I understand God in the Bible, God is a generous God. And of course, forgive me if you've heard some of this already from our other speakers during the day, but God is incredibly generous. God is generous in creation. God is generous with God's unconditional love for each and every person he has made. God is rich in mercy and forgiveness and the gift of salvation. Everything about God is about generosity and hospitality. God is a giving God. And that generous spirit of the Lord is what I believe we should be celebrating, and we should be preaching, we should be living out, and we should be taking the message of this God to the community, both in the congregation and in the parish and beyond. I remember when we, about 10 years ago, when we started the new organ project at the cathedral, which needed a fair amount of money, something like £2 million, I put it to the cathedral chapter, which is the bit of the equivalent of your PCCs. And one member of the chapter said, where are we going to get all this money from, especially as we had the financial fallout in 2008. And I said to the chapter, in response to this question, with lots of doubts were being expressed, quite understandably, and I could understand their worry and their fear and anxiety. I said, I believe that this is what God has laid on our hearts, because music is very important to our worship and our mission and who we are as a cathedral. I believe that we have worked and we prayed for this vision. And I believe that if this is the vision God has given us, and God will provide the money. And of course, there were still lots of doubts and who's and how's in the room. And we eventually did find the money, believe it or not, the money for the organ of the cathedral, which eventually cost £2.2 million, came from the pocket of a Jewish member of the wider community. Somebody who knows the cathedral, who attends the cathedral, who likes what the cathedral is all about. And he came to me and said to me, Rogers, I'm going to provide you with the money to build the organ. And I said, do you know how much it is? He said, yes, I know, it's over £2 million. And when we went to go say thank you to this man, he lives in the Lake District, his name is Norman Stoller. When my fundraiser and I went to go say thank you to Norman, we also said to Norman, just to let you know, we're also raising money for the lighting in the cathedral, because we said to him, your organ needs to be lit up. And he said, oh, I didn't know that. He said, I just signed up to give you money for an organ. We said, no, that's fine, but we just thought we'd let you know that unless we get money for lighting, no one's going to see your organ. And he hummed and hawed, and I kid you not, he dropped down his file on the coffee table in his lounge, and he looked at my fundraiser, Anthony and myself, and said, I tell you fellas, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you another £250,000 towards the lighting. I have to tell you, I nearly fell off my chair when he said that, because we went there essentially to say thank you to him for his generosity to the cathedral, and we were leaving his house with another £250,000 in order to, I beg your pardon, another 500,000, not 250,000, £500,000 towards the lighting scheme. So we were really quite flabbergasted by his generosity. And so what I'm really trying to emphasize is that the generosity of God is within the Christian community, but it's also beyond the Christian community. Those who believe in what we're all about, those who believe in our mission, those who support what the church is doing in church, but also in the wider community. And for me, that's very, very important indeed. I want to also say that people give money, they want to give money for a purpose. Like Norman Stoller, we were raising money for a very specific project, and he knew what he was giving his money towards. Now, it's the same thing with parish ministry. We got to be able to tell our people, this is what we need to be funding this year or the coming year. It may be seemingly mundane things like paying the energy bills and paying staff and so on. But we need to remember that paying the energy bills and keeping the church warm is not some crazy extra that we're doing as a luxury. It is part of the mission of the parish church. But if we tell people what we're asking money for, people, I believe, will be generous and they will give. It's very important that in telling the story of the doubting folks on the chapter regarding the organ in 2008, I had to remind them that we had to believe in God's provision for our needs. We had to have faith, and we had to believe that God will provide, and have that real sort of belief that God will open the pockets and the hearts of those in the community and in the congregation. And so prayer and faith and belief is so very important as we seek to raise money and ask people to be generous. I said that people need a reason to give, and that's very important as well. The other thing I would say is that people give to people. When we seek to raise money at the cathedral, we don't write letters to anybody. We don't write to them and say, can you give us £1,000 or £10,000 or £500 or whatever. We don't do that. We would normally say to people, we'd like to take you on a tour of the cathedral. We'd like to tell you something of the story of this place. And we'd like to get to meet you and get to know you in person. And when people meet us, they often meet me together alone or sometimes with our director of fundraising. When I sort of tell them the story of the cathedral or the parish church, when I was a parish priest, and explain the vision to them, what we're seeking to do for God and the local community, they suddenly begin to understand far more than a letter would give them. Information that they would never have simply through an email or through a letter in the post. So we normally invite people to come along. We take them on a tour. We show them this, that, and the other of importance in the cathedral. I share the vision with them, what we believe God has laid on our hearts to do in the community, in the city, and beyond. And we say to people, at the end of all of that, we'd like you to consider supporting this vision. We'd like you to consider supporting what we believe in, and we know that you share some of those values and some of those things. And so I would say, if you're asking people for money, meet them in person, because people give to people. And also, if I may add one other thing about that, people, and I know that might sound like anathema to some of us as parish clergy, because very often we're working with people we see day in, day out, certainly on a Sunday and on a very regular basis. But it's very important that we recognize that relationships are so very important. Meet with people, hang around with people, share with people, and they've got to like you, whether you like it or not. I have to tell you this from my experience. People have got to like you. If they don't like what you stand for, what you believe in, the way you present the church, present the message and so on, it's going to be hard work getting them to part with money or their time or their expertise or whatever the case might be. I remember, and like I said earlier on, the resources we need of people, skills, expertise, money in particular, it's all there in the congregation. I remember when I was a rector of St. Matthew's Parish in Hayfields in South Africa, that was Pietermaritzburg. The bishop sent me there in 1993, and he said to me, Rogers, the parish has got, I've never known the parish before. He said to me, they have 100 people worshiping in the church. They've got about 20 children, 25 children. All they have is a hall to worship in. Would you be willing to go there and embark on a building project to build a new parish church? And I said, yes, I'd be open to doing that. Long story short, I got to St. Matthew's and they told me all about the building fund, and people were donating to the building fund. They had cake sales and this sale and that sale and so on to raise money. And I talked openly and honestly about the building project, why it was important to build a new church, and how much it was going to cost, broadly speaking, and so on and so forth. A member of my congregation who's late now, his name was Philip. If I could say, Philip was not the easiest member of the congregation. He was quite an awkward sort of personality. People struggled with Philip in church. He would make snide remarks and be a little bit awkward and so on. I got on pretty well with Philip, and I was able to take his kind of snide remarks and his this, that, and the other, sort of with a pinch of salt, smile at him and fobbed it off and just carried on. One day Philip came to me and said to me, Rogers, can I see you? I said, yeah, of course. He said, I believe you want to build a new parish church. I said, yes, I've been talking about it, as you know, over the last 12 months and so on, and we are raising money for it. He said to me, I'll tell you what, I have an insurance policy that's just matured, and I don't really need the money. He had been a businessman before. He sold a news agency and he made a fair amount of money out of that. He said to me, I don't really need the 100,000 that's coming through from the insurance policy. I'm going to give it to you for the church, for the building of the church. I said, are you serious? You're really going to give me 100,000? He said, yes. The money is ready and waiting. Give me the bank details and I will transfer it. And of course, that was a major shot in the arm for the building project. Again, long story short, that gave us the boost that we needed, and we were able to embark on the building project. The church was built in around about 1995, when we dedicated it, and the church is now fully paid up and thriving as a local parish church. If ever you're in Pietermaritzburg, South Africa on holiday, go and visit St. Matthew's Church, and you'll see the project that we embarked on, not all of it, but a major chunk of it funded by one person's generosity. He was willing to give to God because we shared the vision for the gospel, the growth of the church. And that church now has over 200 people with about 50 children and a lovely, diverse suburban area, and it's really thriving. And so that was a powerful experience for me in my second parish. The generosity of God, of course, is not just in terms of that sort of gift, it's in small ways as well. I want to say something very quickly about legacies. We sort of really need legacies at the cathedral, and we do receive a fair number of legacies from people from time to time. But again, it's about sharing with people the vision, telling people the story. Here at the cathedral, a lovely man who lives in Disbury, he's died now. His name is Dr. Tony Enoch, a friend of the cathedral. He was a gay man, struggled to find acceptance in local parish churches. He came to the cathedral, and I very openly and warmly welcomed him into the cathedral. Again, he loved what we were on about and our vision and our mission and our ministry. When Tony died, he left a huge legacy to us. He left us in excess of £200,000. And we're using that money to refurbish the cathedral library so that it's bigger and able to accommodate large crowds of people for other meetings and fundraising activities and so on. These are legacies that have come through from individuals. They make a big difference. So encourage people, in addition to the regular giving, to pay the monthly bills, if you like, and run the church. Do speak about legacies. And the other thing is to tell the story, to share the needs, and to tell people that the legacies will be very welcome. I remember about 7-8 years ago, we wrote about the need for legacies in our fundraising project and vision at the cathedral, and it was published in one of the parish magazines. In fact, it was published in the St. Matthew's parish in Stretford, one of our patronage parishes. They just put in an article about the cathedral's fundraising project. And somebody who had worshipped at the cathedral many, many moons ago and was now living in the St. Matthew's parish, left us in her will a sum of about £350,000. And that made a huge difference to all the major building works that we've been doing at the cathedral. It's all about telling people the story. And when people hear the story, they see the project, they hear the needs, people will consider the local church, they will consider your parish, they will consider the cathedral, and they will be generous. But you've got to tell the story out there, because the money is out there, the people are out there, and they are wanting to do something for God. They're wanting to bless the community. They're wanting to bless the church. And so we must not be shy to tell them the story. And so I told you a little bit about local parish fundraising for projects, legacies, that people don't just write letters to people. Don't be shy to tell people the story. I remember during COVID here at the cathedral, as we started to, well, it was online as well, I would do this. And when people slowly began to come back to church, it was still in that at that time when we were not passing the plate around because of COVID worries, but we had a great big collection box in the middle aisle, the center aisle. As people came to communion, they put in their collection. And before we got to that point, I would say to people, we're about to sing the offertory hymn now, and this is where we usually we pass the plate around. But we're not going to do that this Sunday because of COVID. But I'm going to encourage you to give and to give generously. And I would make sort of be lighthearted about it sometimes. I would say, it's COVID, it's been COVID time, and we need your lolly. I need to pay the light bill, and we need to pay this, that, and the other. And I encourage you to give generously. And people have a great big laugh, just putting it sort of lightheartedly, and they would give generously. So these have been some of my experiences as a parish priest, as dean of a cathedral, and we are still raising loads and loads of money for all sorts of things, as somebody like Philip Blinkhorn will tell you, being a member of the cathedral chapter. But these are some of the kind of tips that I take seriously for myself, and hopefully in sharing it with you, you would be encouraged and recognize that we have so much to be thankful for. This is my motto when somebody gives us a small sum of money or a large sum of money. I say to my colleagues here at the cathedral, every pound that we receive from somebody is a pound that we never had. So we're not talking just big money. It can be just a simple pound or £5 that somebody donates to the cathedral is a pound that we've never had before. And that's a gift. That's a blessing. And we just thank God for every pound, or dare I say, every 50p that is given to us in the money box, in the plate, in the legacy, or whatever, is money we've never had before. And all praise and thanks be to God for that. So let me leave you with those thoughts and say that, of course, all the praise and thanksgiving is to the Lord, because the God we worship is a generous, welcoming, hospitable God who gives so much to his creation and gives so much to the church, and we should give back so much in thankfulness and gratitude, appreciation, and praise to the Lord. When you come to the cathedral, next time you look at our new organ, well, not so new anymore, and you notice the design on the organ, you'll see that the section in the nave is shaped in the form of hands. And the reason we shaped it and designed it in that way is meant to be praise the Lord, with the hands sort of raised up to heaven like that, to express our thanksgiving to God for all God's goodness to us. So may God bless you as you seek to be generous to the church, as you seek and encourage others to be generous in their worship of God and their discipleship. And may your ministry flourish from one day, 1 week to the next. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you very much, Rogers. I remember attending the opening concert of the organ at the cathedral. It was a wonderful evening, and the cut-out letters from the frontage of the organ. I've actually got ones with my my own first initial, my children's initials, and my wife's initial in our kitchen still to this day. It's still there. So it was a fantastic evening. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly share screen, and I am going to invite Karen to do some closing remarks and a closing prayer for us. So, Karen, could you draw our day to a close, please?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone for hanging in there to the close of this day. And maybe some of you were at the 2020 conference, the last Giving and Generosity and Thankfulness conference, and we came away from that day overwhelmed with good things that we wanted to progress and reflect on. And we're coming away today at the end of this conference with the same thoughts, the the same feelings. And I want to, just at the very beginning, just that I don't forget, is just to give thanks to, say our thank yous to Paul Bailey, our giving officer, who is the architect of this conference and who was the architect of the 2020 conference too. And there is absolutely a team that Paul works with behind the scenes. Daniel's there, so thank you, Daniel. I'm not going to name anyone else because I know I'm going to forget someone, but to Paul and the team for putting today together, which has just been so brilliant. And also for our contributors, all the workshop leaders, everyone who has contributed today, thank you. And also to all of you as participants. I'm going to try and sort of end on time, so I'm not going to try and sort of summarize, and I don't think there's a need to summarize. I think always for days like this, we, sort of have takeaways, things that kind of sit with us or just speak to us very strongly, and where we hear God just kind of tapping us in some way. And I just encourage you to take that back and reflect and pray and pray and pray, share with congregations. We give thanks for all that we've heard, all that's been shared. Bishop Mark this morning was talking about being thankful. We've just heard from Rogers sharing with us stories of hope, and knowing that all that we pray and ask for, we have already. I was sharing a little bit about being generous and having an abundant spirit in the same way that we know that our Lord does. And the national advisor too, who shared with us some stark figures. There were some stark figures in some of the data that he shared, but also some positive figures as well. So hold on to the thoughts and hold on to the things that have particularly touched you today, and use them as an opportunity to take you and your communities, whether you're in the mission community here in Manchester, our parishes, whatever your context, to take them out and to do something with it, to build the kingdom through our generosity and our thankfulness. So just to you as participants, thank you for all that you are doing already. We always have a fairly large agenda as disciples in the church. So thank you for all that you are doing, and may God continue to bless you in that. So we do pray today as we conclude this conference for hearts and minds that are merciful as our God is merciful, for intentions that are perfect as our God is perfect, and for outcomes that are generous and offered in a spirit of thankfulness for each other and also for all God's people in every place. So I'm going to end with a prayer that Paul will put up on the screen, and that will be followed by some music which will end our conference. So thank you, everyone. We'll just hold just a moment of silence before I say the prayer. Lord, your word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. Thank you that we can live in your light and walk in your truth. May the things that you have revealed and thoughts that we have shared today dwell in our hearts and stir us to action. We ask all this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Creative culture shift that is unfolding, and I believe that we will receive that through song, beloved sound, and art we are holding. And I know sometimes your we don't stop moving towards that fight. I know we ain't got long, but we are mighty warriors. Stepped up in song and I said, good morning Tuesday. Thanks for your song, I like when I roll out of bed and it carries me along. And I wanna ask you for your lyrical touch to my newfound melody. And I said, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I said, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I said, thank you very much. Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. I can hear the train tracks, love the sound go clickety clack. We don't need no hotel, stories making bodies rocking. I wanna honor all the lessons of my father, all my life and longer. Together we are stronger, and I wanna sing all the songs taught by my mother. Be strong but still be subtle. Let your life carve out your rumble. And now, love, let me tell you, we are out to get 'em. Nobody knows what hit 'em. My songs are made to lift 'em. And I said thank you. I said thank you. I said thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. I said thank you. I said thank you. I said thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. I said thank you. I said thank you. I said thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. I said thank you. I said thank you. I said thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody, for today. I hope you get something out of it. Please let us know. We've got some surveys and some polling behind the scenes. Be grateful if you could complete those and send those back to us. Thanks to our wonderful sponsors for today's event and all of our speakers and our exhibitors and our workshop leaders, and most of all to all of you for giving up your Saturdays and coming to support this event. I'm immensely grateful for your time and for all of your help that you provide to all of your churches on an ongoing basis. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Paul.
Bye.